Good morning. We are just 1 minute away from saying good afternoon. So good morning, everyone. And thank you all for joining. It's a packed session, sir, as you can see. A lot of people have come here just to hear you. And many of you might be knowing Mr. Amitabh Kant, the former CEO of Niti Aayog, as well as the G20, former G20 Sherpa, a champion for electrification of transport in India, is with us for the expert talk. And next half an hour or so, we want to hear him. One, looking at his vision for transport. Where does he see the transition for automotive industry? What role he sees India playing? And then when can we accelerate this transition? And we can have some Q&A later on. So with that, I will hand it up to Mr. Kant to share some initial remarks on this automotive transformation which is happening, and where does India stand in this transformation?
Amit and all the distinguished guests who've joined us today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly delighted to be here. I've been a long-term admirer of ICCT for the good work they've done to accelerate the pace of transformation in India. I say this because you need a lot of think tanks, a lot of intellectual bodies who are passionate, who are committed, if India is to make a radical transformation and make a difference to our lives. We are in the month of August. By October, Delhi becomes unlivable for 3 months. And that is why we had to prepone the G20 summit in India from November to September 9th so that the air quality could be good. Now, what's important is that the quality of air is impacting the lives of citizens in India. It's impacting the lives of health. It's impacting the lives of pregnant women. It's impacting the lives of children who are born in Delhi. It's impacting the lives of all of us who live in Delhi. And therefore, we need to clean up the air. I think this should be India's #1 mission. Several countries in the past, whether it was the city of Los Angeles, whether it was London, whether it was Beijing, all have been able to do it with very strong political and administrative will. This would require several measures that need to be taken, and I have written on at length recently on a series of measures that need to be taken. This requires our energy stations in Delhi to be desulfurized. It requires brick kiln factories just outside Delhi to be transformed. This requires very hard action against industries which are polluting Delhi. Many of them are still not on clean fuel. This requires that a lot of villages just outside Delhi actually we are able to provide them gas chulas rather than burning firewood, and this requires better airshed management, but most critical, it requires good clean transportation. Now, I think to my mind, India stands at a very critical juncture, and the choice we make on transportation, and today we are discussing transportation, and transportation is important because it accounts for about 18 to 20% of the CO2 emissions. It will define not only our economic trajectory, it will define our economic and social outcomes for the decades to come. Because if we lock into a wrong technology, and there's a huge debate sometimes taking place between hybrid and electric vehicles. We must understand that electrics is tailpipe emission is zero. It is not the case with hybrid. Now, because of some vested interests, if we lock into the wrong technology, we will be locked into a wrong technology for the next 2.5 decades. We will never be able to leapfrog. And therefore, we should have the clarity of mind to understand that we want good technology to leapfrog, much like we've done in digital public infrastructure, much like we've used mobile telephony, do fast transactions. In transportation, we need cutting edge technology to leapfrog. Now, as I said, we are in the month of August and the winters come close. In Delhi, we'll be under the worst air quality as highlighted multiple times by WHO in its World Air Quality Report. Every winter, cities like Delhi, not merely Delhi, but many other cities remind us of the health cost of mobility. And transport is a major source of particulate matter and NOx emissions, and therefore this is critical. Now, to my mind, electric vehicle adoption has been done in several cities of the world, particularly in Beijing, China, where the CO2 emissions dropped by 55% between 2012 and 2022. And it's important to understand that approximately 20 million electric vehicles were sold in 2024 in the world, with China leading by 60% and India lagging at 1%. So let us understand this, that China has actually approximately 20 million EV vehicles were sold in 2024. 60% of that market was in China and India had only 1%. And therefore, we need to transform the energy profile of the transport sector, and which can mitigate many of the challenges. And electric vehicles adoption in Beijing, for instance, led to PM 2.5 levels there dropping by 55%, and we need to push this in a very big way. Now, we feel that there is a need, I personally feel there is a very clear need to develop a new overarching strategy and for India's transition to clean mobility. And actually, this is, to my mind, a $200 billion opportunity. The Prime Minister has talked about next generation reforms. And he's talked about the present global geopolitical crisis as making India a land for reforms in a big way. And one of the key reforms that we need to create this $200 billion opportunity is in the transport sector through electric vehicles, battery manufacturing, building up components, auto components in India for electric vehicle. And this can generate, to my mind, millions of jobs and global investment in India. The good news is that we've made significant progress over the last few years. We've launched the FAME 2 scheme. We've done the PM e-drive for EV adoption, reaching 5% of the total annual vehicle sales. We brought in the production-linked incentive scheme. We've seen the National Electric Bus Program is scaling up e-buses in cities like Delhi. States like Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu are showing the way with progressive EV policies. On the private side, we've seen Indian companies, Tata Motors, Mahindra, to Ather Energy, to Switch Mobility, Reliance, all of them are investing billions in EVs, batteries, hydrogen, and together these initiatives actually signal that India is serious, really serious about this transition. we are serious about this transition, but we need to accelerate and we need to scale it up. Acceleration and scaling it up. So my view on this is that we need certain key transition pathways, and let me outline, to my mind, the 5 key pathways that will shape India's clean transition, clean transport future. One is, firstly, I think, and I'll come to CAFE norms later, but my first view is that we should identify cities with high tailpipe emission and over 2 million population. And so identify cities with high tailpipe emission and over 2 million population, and push for 100% electrification in both two-wheelers and three-wheelers. And target that by 2030 we go 100% electric vehicle, at least in these cities. Identify 10 cities and make them 100% EV by 2030. Secondly, we should phase out old polluting vehicles with to my mind, within next 24 months, either retire or retrofit old internal combustion vehicles, and Delhi alone, it can create a demand for 2 million EVs. And we need both the political and administrative will to do this. Retrofit them. If you don't have the will to knock them out, ensure that they are retrofitted. And you need this political will to do this. Weak-hearted administrative and political leadership will not be adequate. We need strong political leadership to deliver this, and you need to phase out old polluting vehicles. Thirdly, you need to mandate zero emission vehicles for all new registrations of autos, light commercial vehicles, taxis, and last mile delivery in these 10 cities, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, etc. Mandate zero emission vehicles. And then push for bulk procurement order for school buses, airport taxis, and auto rickshaws to achieve economies of scale and ensure price discovery. That has been done in India earlier for LED bulbs, where we saw the prices fall. We've done this in the case of electric buses, where we pooled the demand for 6 cities. So you need to pool the demand and push down prices, and that is very, very important to my mind. So 5 key things to my mind, 3-4 key things. Identify cities with high tailpipe emissions, push for 100% electrification, phase out old polluting vehicles in the next 24 months, mandate zero emission vehicles for new registration, taxis and last mile delivery, at least last mile deliveries and taxis should all go EV in key cities, particularly Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore. Promote bulk procurement. I am also of the view that all this would require a huge ecosystem of battery ecosystem to be built up in India, and we put a lot of resources for the Department of Heavy Industry, Ministry of Heavy Industries, for battery ecosystem to be built up in India. We need to accelerate that, and gigafactories are still under development. We need to ensure that these gigafactories come up quickly, and 10 gigawatt of battery manufacturing is not awarded by Ministry of Power, MHI. They should do it at the earliest, to my mind, and ensure that all the gigafactories that have been awarded in PLI scheme need to be handheld, and those who are not delivering their orders should be cancelled, and fresh bids should be called, and we should move forward. Gigafactory establishment is critical for India, and we should push for that. Secondly, we need to develop mineral processing and battery value chain by identifying the right technology and joint venture partners across the globe to reduce supply chain. There's a huge supply chain volatility. We need to do mineral processing and battery value chain building in India. Thirdly, we need to explore niche battery chemistries like solid state, sodium ion, flow batteries, aluminum air through pilot projects for grid storage and for drones, etc. This is important. and we also need to promote circular economy initiatives through recycling, and second life applications will be critical for sustainability. These, to my mind, are very important. Next, I'll come to infrastructure and digitalization, because that is very, very critical. And charging, in that I feel that the charging networks must expand rapidly. They must expand both slow charging for households and fast charging for highways. This is very, very important. This is very important that municipalities, state governments should push for it, so that we can push for fast charging. National highways must ensure that every 100 kilometers we must have fast charging. There should be no battery anxieties, and therefore charging networks must expand. And grid integration and renewable energy linkages will ensure that EVs are truly clean, because more and more renewable is coming in, and it's very, very important that we are able to do grid integration within renewable energy. And thirdly, I think digital solutions, that is AI-enabled fleet optimization and smart traffic management, will enhance our efficiency, and all this is critical. Now, there are opportunities for clean energy transition. There are huge opportunities for clean energy transition, particularly opportunities in heavy-duty vehicles. So if you look at it, China leads with over 150,000 e-trucks. 150,000 e-trucks driven by e-commerce players. There are no e-commerce players which use fossil fuel vehicles. Everyone uses only electric trucks, and therefore we must ensure that all e-commerce players must move to e-vehicles, and there is a deployment of over 100,000 e-trucks. Our targets must be a deployment of over 100,000 trucks in India by 2030. This could create over 2 lakh. This would unlock over 2 lakh crores in green industrial investment, and actually create close to over 5 lakh jobs in India. So these are not challenges, these are opportunities for India, huge challenges. These are huge opportunities for India to create jobs, to make a massive technological leapfrogging and push forward. We need to involve shippers and public fleet operators in a scaled adoption of zero emission trucks. And given the fragmented nature of India's truck market, 80% of the fleet is actually owned by small fleet operators. The challenge in India is very different. 80% of the fleet is owned by small fleet operators. There is a need for an early move by large shippers and logistics towards zero emission transport adoption and long-term contracts, and that will help the small players to move towards electric vehicles. We also need to foster a competitive and sustainable market, very competitive and sustainable market through business models. We need to scale up our e-bus procurement by state transport undertakings, and EESL must play a key critical role in creating this market. India could also leverage the lessons learned from electric bus aggregation, which we had done to transition to public fleets such as municipal and all these lessons which have been learned in India must be taken forward to do much more procurement of buses. The Prime Minister said next procurement should be of 10,000, the third transition should be of 30,000 and 100, and then the 100,000 buses for Indian municipalities. Now imagine if you're doing 30,000 and 100,000 buses procurement, you will make India the center for Make in India buses. Buses will be made in India and exported to the rest of the world, and that is what we need to do. We also need to explore leasing as a service model, that is leasing as a business model as opposed to direct ownership, because OEMs can then give customers cars, trucks at a fixed monthly cost, which will give customers access to vehicle including trucks and cars charging infrastructure, and therefore pay per mile leasing option will be a great move forward. Pay per mile will be a great moving forward. And then the point I want to make is that we need to do retrofitment of existing ICE trucks. This is important because several, Baba Kalyani and many others are saying that they have the technology to do retrofitting. So retrofitting trucks is 24% cheaper per kilometer compared to acquiring new electric vehicles, and therefore counterparts in terms of the total cost of ownership. So therefore total retrofitting of a lorry will cost around close to about 25 to 30 lakhs. However, the challenge with truck retrofitting is that homologation certification takes a long time, and we need to cut that down so that we are able to do the retrofitting in a very fast manner, quick manner, and certification needs to be pushed in a big way. And in both these, the Ministry of Heavy Industries and the Ministry of Road Transport both have to take leadership position and drive this. Now, the last point I want to make is that we need to develop a very robust, all this will work if we are able to develop a very robust charging infrastructure. We need high-powered chargers on highways, which are very, very effective so that there is no energy anxiety. Existing charging infrastructure development along the major corridor like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Calcutta, Cochin will lead the way for long-distance transport movement of electric vehicles. We need to strategically build adequate power infrastructure to meet the growing EV market, including load assessment, dedicated infrastructure, etc. We need to encourage battery swapping for fixed cost logistics. That's also very important. And we need to actually build up financing models and de-risking mechanisms. We need to provide credit guarantees, risk sharing, and interest subvention for financing electric vehicles. Because we need to build up a market for resale of electric vehicles, which that market doesn't exist. And therefore, credit guarantees in the initial phases will be important. And regulators in collaboration with development finance institutions like ADB, AIIB, World Bank must consider providing credit guarantees, establishing risk-sharing mechanism, and cheaper financing for all this. And we should explore innovative business models in many of these areas. This is all very critical. This is all very, very, very important. My view is that this is a huge, these are areas of huge opportunities where India must play a key role. I also want to say that for me, finalizing CAFE standards is really very important, and is the missing piece in India's green transport. It's very, very important because there have been some major movement forward. First, the Ministry of Heavy Industry rolled out the e-truck scheme under the PM e-drive initiative. And as I've mentioned, that India's transport sector carries a very heavy carbon footprint, and therefore we need to be able to, we need to finalize the India's, it's very, very important that to understand that our CAFE norms, they remain trapped in very bureaucratic, outdated norms. HDV fuel efficiency standards face the same fate. And, actually to my mind, there's a policy failure as far as CAFE norms are concerned. And CAFE standards are regulatory backbone of automotive efficiency. They require car makers to achieve specific average fuel consumption and emission targets across their fleets. And this market-based mechanism drives innovation in many ways by allowing manufacturers flexibility on how they meet targets. And therefore, this ramification of administrative delays in pushing for better CAFE norms has very huge ramifications. They cascade through India's entire clean mobility ecosystem. They lead to unchecked emission growth. They lead to paralysis of innovation. They lead to institutional gridlock. And therefore, there is a huge opportunity again in pushing for better CAFE norms, and a comprehensive CAFE framework will protect Indian consumers and position the country's auto industry to compete globally. We need our automobile industry not to be frozen in time, but to compete globally. And that would require CAFE norms to be updated. And to build a comprehensive future-ready transport decarbonization strategy, finalizing the CAFE norms is critical. And finalizing CAFE and fuel efficiency standards must be given topmost priority. These are not just technical regulations, they are foundational pillars to my mind that will enable the transition to cleaner mobility. And 3 decisive actions are needed. We need to notify a CAFE Stage 3 norms on topmost priority. India needs to do this on topmost priority, the new CAFE Stage 3 norms. Secondly, it needs to accelerate the finalization of fuel efficiency norms for heavy-duty vehicles. This is very, very important. And thirdly, we need to build synergy between policies. Rather than treating demand incentive schemes like PME drive and fuel efficiency standards as separate silos, we need to align them under a unified transport decarbonization network. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think the moment for India to do incremental action is long gone. It's all past. We need integrated, ambitious policy implementation, which can make India a leader in transport mobility, which can position India as a clean mobility pioneer. And CAFE norms are not just another regulation, they are the cornerstone that will determine whether India's transport sector becomes a climate solution or leaves India behind with a persistent problem. The challenge is that India must technologically leapfrog with policies, and all these are critical for India to be a global champion of clean mobility. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Kant, for this wonderful address. We have a couple of minutes. Maybe we can take 1 or 2 quick questions from anyone who's here. So if you could raise your hand, I'll probably identify you, and then we can take question. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Kant, you spoke about retrofitting, and just wanted to get your thoughts on how scalable it is, not just in the freight sector, but even in public transport, in terms of buses or auto rickshaws in cities. And do you think it's financially, politically, and also logistically viable to work with powerful unions in, say, Bangalore or Pune to kind of retrofit all their vehicles so that last mile connectivity is sort of completely electrified?
Retrofitting is one question. Sir, I'll take one more question and then we can answer. Drew, you had your question. Yeah.
Mr. Kant, thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to see you, and thanks for your leadership in this area. You mentioned that the CAFE norms are the cornerstone of the successful transition. Can you speak a little bit? We had a session here earlier today about the value and benefits of having transfer of credits within the CAFE program, in the same way that California and Europe and the United States and China allow for those manufacturers that exceed the standards to then benefit by selling those credits to those that aren't. If you would speak a little bit about that, I would appreciate it.
So first is on retrofitting, and I'm of the view that we need to create a market for that because it's possible to do retrofitting. Several manufacturers in India are able to do retrofitting, but our state government enterprises which runs buses for various reasons are not pushing for it. I'm not saying you do whole of it, but you need to start the pace of retrofitting. And if you are able to create a market, you'll realize that it's much cheaper than acquiring new vehicles. If it can be done, and in fact, we need to use our Institute of Technologies, all of our IITs. This should be a big challenge for them to bring down the cost of retrofitting of our combustion vehicles into electric vehicles, all of them. They should actually do this and demonstrate that it can be done in a very low cost. And all these, at least our target should be that at least 20% of the fossil fuel buses and trucks can be retrofitted. What if it is much cheaper? Then we should. What is the rocket science in that? It is being done by. I saw it in Pune. It was being done by Baba Kalyani is this company. So if they are doing it, and many others are also doing it. So you'll create a market. Why not fix a target for 20% and go ahead and do it? But the second is also that we need to procure buses like we did when I was in Niti Aayog for 7 cities. We did this. You need to procure the demand, put the demand together and procure both lorries as well as buses for all cities together and accelerate. The prices will fall. India will become then a manufacturer of EV trucks and EV buses, and we'll export from here to the rest of the world. If you don't do it now, you'll become an importer for the rest of your life, as you are doing with battery, auto components, powertrains, etc. Why should we do that? We should push for manufacturing here in a very big way. So this is a huge opportunity. To the point which Drew made, first of all, let me compliment ICCT for a very good work in India and for being a thought leader in many of these areas. And I take this opportunity to compliment, and I really feel that those who take the lead must be given credit for it. I think the model that has been India, we must learn from the global best practices. When Lee Kuan Yew was building up Singapore, he said that actually I've done nothing new. When people were giving him credit for Singapore, he said, I've not done anything new in Singapore. I just took the best practices from across the world and I implemented them. I ramroded them and I ensured that they were implemented. The best infrastructure, the best buildings, ensuring that people do not spit. He said, I'd seen it in many other parts of the world and I ensured that it was implemented. So India needs to just learn from the best practices from across the world and implement them. We don't need to ideate too much. Just learn from the best practices and implement. If this has been a success in United States or in Europe or many other parts of the world, we need to borrow the best practice and implement and give credit to those who've moved ahead in the EV market first. And they must get the credit with advanced technologies. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Kant. With this, we will come to a closer session, but a round of applause again. And before we let Mr. Kant leave, I would request Mr. Kant to officially launch our report on electric buses. And I would request my co-authors, Revati and Bhaumik, to also join me on the dais and request Mr. Kant to officially launch the report.